What is going on, Wedger Nation? Thank you for joining us here. This is a collaborative effort between the La Cuenta Ledger Network and WeSibs. We are covering the premiere episode of the brand new Disney Plus series, Loki. There was a lot to get into with this particular episode. Chris, let's get it going.
Absolutely. What's going on, guys? It's the Granite Geek. Excited to be here on behalf of WeSibs tonight. We've got Loki episode 1. This is going to be a breakdown of the biggest moments for us. So be sure to hit us up in the chat. We'll be chatting it up with you guys live here on the stream. And don't forget, I will also be covering the episode over on WeSibs, getting a little deeper into the nuances of the episode and making some predictions moving forward. So happy to be here, Jay. Let's dive into this episode.
Absolutely. So right off the bat, we got the beginning of this series by flashing back to how we even got here. I thought it was a good recall for anybody that may not have remembered, may have kind of forgotten with all the time that has elapsed between Avengers Endgame and where we are now with Loki. So, Chris, what was kind of one of the big main things that you took away from this particular episode?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing they're definitely harping on in this episode is Loki's whole backstory and his path to redemption. So they're talking about, oh man, all you do is stab people in the back. You know, you got your own mother killed. They were really harping on him, driving it home in the first episode, establishing this as a base of his character. We know who this Loki is. This is the Loki that works for Thanos. This is the Loki from Avengers 1 in 2012. Obviously, a huge thing at the end, finding out that Thanos ends up killing him. So I think they nipped that in the bud as well. But that, I think, was the biggest thing you could take from the beginning of this episode was Loki's character, and that, you know, he's a pretty bad dude.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think one of the big things that, you know, in kind of piggybacking on your point there is that they really did dive pretty deep into kind of who this version of Loki was, making us remember just how bad he was. You know, to the point where when we got that first Avengers team up movie, we thought that Loki was going to be, you know, a serious, you know, cosmic threat. But we know that he was just kind of the precursor to Thanos. So I think they get a very good job of showing that. And like you said, they really harped on the fact of him kind of having that tie to Thanos being severed by seeing Thanos killing him at the end.
Absolutely.
All right. One of the big things that, you know, I took away from the kind of beginning parts of this episode was we got a lot of backstory, a lot of almost, you know, information dump as to how this show is kind of going to align itself with the rest of the MCU going forward. And I think one of the things that they really harped on was they kind of gave us this little cartoon rendition of the sacred timeline, the timekeepers, the you know, the variants, the Nexus event, and we heard about the multiverse. We know that in Doctor Strange, we're going to get the multiverse of madness that's going to feature Wanda, but here we get it again, just kind of a very bold impression. Hey, this is what you're getting. We're going to start filtering in all of this stuff that you've been anticipating, you've been waiting for, and now we're going to start seeing that. So I think that was one of the big things that I took away from the very beginning of this episode.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the TVA was something that they had to establish. This is kind of like an intro course to time travel. Charlie was saying from Emergency Awesome, he was doing his episode 1 pre-review. He had gotten to see the episode early, and he was saying that what they're trying to do here is kind of rewrite some of the rules of time that they established in Avengers Endgame. So they said they didn't do, not that necessarily anything major would be changing about the way time works, but they wanted to reiterate it because they didn't feel like it, like Avengers Endgame did a good job of explaining how time works. So this is necessary. The TVA, that little explainer, the old cartoon and all that stuff, because by the time Multiverse of Madness comes and Spider-Man comes, it's going to be in full effect. They don't have time to explain anything. They want to get right into the story. So Loki's going to pick up on some of those things and explain a couple of things away. By the way, real quick, guys, don't forget to hit us up in the chat. We're taking live questions. If you just saw the episode, what are your thoughts? Did you like it? Let us know.
Absolutely. We definitely want to get a ton of fan interaction here, letting us know your thoughts, your feelings. What is it that you're looking for from this particular series? What were your big takeaways from the very premiere episode of Loki. So definitely hit us up in the comment section below. Let us know what your thoughts are on this first episode of Loki. All right, Chris, what were some of the other things that you kind of took away from this particular episode?
Well, I will say, and obviously this is par for the course for the Marvel series, but just I mean, the production quality already out the gate, really, really good. The set design, the acting, everybody seems as a cast to flow really well. Ravonna Rainslayer, her character who is just kind of introduced, as well as Owen Wilson's Mobius character, they all mesh really well. With Tom Hiddleston's Loki, and I think that all of this was designed in that way. Oh, you can see my pops here in the widescreen. So I got Russell Wilson knocked down there, but he's in Loki green. He's ready for tonight. But yeah, definitely, I think that those that was something that I really took away, just the quality of this episode, and also I feel like this has the potential to be one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Disney Plus show, just because of the scale, multiverse, time travel, and of course, super powered beings, like the likes of which we've only seen in WandaVision. WandaVision was good, but it kind of didn't end as action packed as I'd like to. So I hope that Loki can pick up on that and really deliver in time for Spider-Man and Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a bold statement because you were very hyped up on Falcon and Winter Soldier. So
Yes.
For this to potentially already be
Mhm.
giving you vibes of becoming your favorite Disney Plus show, that's a big statement to make. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how the series plays out for sure, for sure. So one of the other things that kind of stood out to me, and it was kind of a statement that was made that really stood out, was about when Loki and Owen Wilson's character Morbius was discussing the timekeepers and the fact that they don't approve or disapprove of what happens in the timeline as long as it remains in the timeline. So I think that is going to be one of the big things that we're going to be seeing from this particular show. And we would kind of get a little bit of a glimpse of who the big bad is going to be for this particular show. And we'll get into that in just a bit. But I think that that is going to be a very heavy focus going forward. And like you said, Chris, this is going to be a kind of precursor, a crash course in what this new version of time travel is going to be based on how we're going forward in the MCU. So for sure, that's going to be a very important detail to keep an eye on as we move forward.
Yeah, and I think, some of the characters that they're bringing into the show, obviously at the end, one of the big reveals was that the variant, which they call anybody who jumps out of the main timeline, is Loki himself. But one important thing that we don't want to miss is the fact that they were saying that the time watchers or the timekeepers, I forget what they were called. I think they're called
the timekeepers.
The timekeepers. Yeah. They're okay with all these happening, all these different things happening, and Loki being defeated in Avengers and all that stuff because it was preordained by the timekeepers. But the question is, what is their ultimate end for the MCU? Where is all that going? And it'll just be interesting now because they've kind of established a god now in the MCU, being the timekeepers, that everything that has happened thus far in the MCU was all according to their plan, including Thanos, possibly, who knows what's going to come with Galactus and characters of that nature, the Eternals and that movie coming up, these big cosmic characters who can affect entire universes. So this is kind of Marvel's god as we know it right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big, point of emphasis that we kind of really want to make sure people understand that this is a very important setup. These timekeepers, these three entities, are going to be kind of, judge, jury, and executioner going forward. Because if you step out of time, if you step out of your line, your variant, you are going to be sought after by these Minutemen hunters that they have going after these variants that step out of line. So I think that it's going to be very important that as we kind of continue forward on this journey through Loki and through his, his path to redemption, because we know that that's what this story is. This is the Loki redemption story. There's no doubt about it. The way that they were able to kind of harp back on how evil he was to begin his journey in the MCU, to where we found him by Infinity War and Endgame, and having Thanos, kill him, and seeing that, and having him see that, and kind of how his demeanor changed after seeing that. So I think that it's going to be a very big thing to see how the timekeepers kind of play over controlling everything and really being in power over all of the MCU going forward. And one of the things, in speaking of Thanos and kind of tying him into this, we would see in one section of this show that there were multiple Infinity Stones inside of the TVA, the Time Variance Agency. And when we looked at them, the character that we were introduced to, Casey, he says that a lot of the people in the TVA use them as paperweight, because we know that there's no magic in the TVA. But the fact that there were so many Infinity Stones really stuck out to me as a potential opportunity for something else to happen down the line with the stones. Maybe that's how we get some of these characters that we know that are being brought back. Back. Being able to kind of trade one of these soul stones to maybe bring back Scarlet Witch, to bring back Black Widow, I should say. Maybe being able to bring back some of these versions of these characters that we may have lost simply by having these plethora of stones. So I think that's going to be something to kind of pay attention to.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing, just behind the scenes of the show, they did give them more free reign than any of the Disney Plus shows thus far, to use cameos and to use different characters that we hadn't seen before, or that hadn't been in Disney Plus shows. So they have free reign on that. So we could see certain characters. I doubt we'll see like Wanda. But he mentioned Thor. He did mention Heimdall. Could we get a cameo from Idris Elba? Different stuff. We could maybe see Hela. Who knows? He's time traveling and dealing with different variants of himself. And so one of the possibilities there is definitely for some huge cameos. So we'll have to wait and see what they do with that. But we know that they kind of have free reign on characters.
Yeah, and I think what we're going to get a lot of is unintentional cameos, by showing footage from the previous MCU movies, showing previous footage of Loki, and kind of getting them cameoed that way, as opposed to actually physically having a new version of them on the show. So I think that could be something that we'll see a bit of going into this series. But I think there's a lot of opportunity here to get a feel for a brand new feeling show. I think that because they have so much creative freedom, the ability to bring in whoever they really want to, I think that there's going to be a lot of growth for the MCU coming out of Loki.
And another thing to keep in mind is, it's a time travel show, so they can do whatever they want, because they can always just say, and we erased it. I mean, how many times did they use a little clicker and rewind stuff that Loki was doing? So, sometimes you have to be careful that you don't overuse that, because then you're always worried. Even though I will say right now, and I get into this over on my WeSibs coverage of this episode that I'll be doing right after this, don't trust what you see. That's kind of my first thing. This is Loki. This is his MO. He's the god of mischief. So very early on, I'm very careful with what I say. This actually happened. These things are going to happen, because you're not only throwing in the god of mischief, but also time travel. So those are two things where you can do and undo things very easily. So while you're right, Jay, it gives them incredible creative freedom. It also means you got to be really careful with what you trust.
Yeah, and I think that that's a very good point to kind of start to wrap this up on, is the fact that we were told that quite a bit in this episode. You mentioned it about the clicker, the time twister, I believe they called it, where they kept rewinding Loki's action. He then kept rewinding, the Hunter B-15, I believe it was, her action. I think that there's going to be a lot of kind of misdirect especially with Loki being the god of mischief. They brought that up quite a bit. And I think that there's going to be, again, just piggybacking on your point, a lot of misdirection, sleight of hand type of feel when it comes to this particular show. I think that, again, like you said, there's going to be a lot here that doesn't fully turn out to be how it appears to be. We know that Loki himself was constantly, changing his appearance to mimic this person, mock that person, but also to deceive people. He is the god of mischief. So I think that there's going to be quite a bit of that in this particular series. So definitely keep it locked into both Lara Cuenta Ledger Network and WeSids as we continue our coverage here for Loki. We've covered all the Disney Plus shows so far, WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and now here we are again with Loki. So make sure you keep it locked into both channels because we are definitely bringing you coverage and content consistently over Disney Plus. So definitely. Chris, any kind of final thoughts you want to give before we get on out of here?
Yeah, all I would say is if you want more in-depth theories and kind of predictions about the show, including the establishing of Marvel's God, including the don't trust what you see, including characters like Lady Loki and the Variant and stuff like that, and behind the scenes stuff. I watch a lot of the other YouTubers coverage on the show. Jay and I both do. So we'll mention some other fellow creators, tell you when we're taking from them and like saying, oh, this was interesting. So really keep it locked here if you kind of want to hear everybody's thoughts on the show. But go follow my coverage of the show as well over on our sister channel, WeSibs, and keep it locked on the Lara Cuenta Ledger as well with a subscribe and a like.
Definitely. We have a lot more coverage coming for you guys as we cover this entire season here, both on the Lara Cuenta Ledger Network and on WeSibs. This will be our premiere coverage here, but we will bring it back together for the finale, potentially having the entire crew with us for that finale coverage. So make sure you keep it locked into both the Lara Cuenta Ledger Network and WeSibs. Links to their channel will be down below in the description. Likewise, if you're on the WeSibs side, links will be down below for the Lara Cuenta Ledger Network. So make sure you keep it locked into both channels as we will be bringing you the best coverage over your Disney Plus content. So as we get out of here tonight, make sure you head over to WeSibs as you're going to get more in-depth coverage on this premiere episode of Loki. So I want to thank you guys for joining us here on this premiere coverage, and we will see you guys next week. Peace.